Some of the most profound human transformations occur in the most ordinary places. Behind the counters of America's fast food restaurants, amid the sizzle of grills and the hum of drink machines, lie untold stories of resilience, redemption, and reinvention. The narrative I share today unfolds within the fluorescent-lit confines of a Burger King in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. A tale that reminds us how dignity can be found even when life strips away everything we once defined ourselves by. It's a story about falling from grace and rising again, about public humiliation and private triumph, about discovering one's true worth in a place society often overlooks. In a culture obsessed with success, we rarely pause to consider the journeys of those who serve our quick meals. Yet sometimes the person handing you a Whopper has traveled a path more extraordinary than you could imagine, a path marked by both devastating setbacks and remarkable courage. This is the story of Marcus Winters, a 42-year-old man who found himself starting over when life dealt him a crushing blow. His journey from the corporate boardroom to Burger King employee number 471 reveals profound truths about human resilience and the unexpected gifts hiding within our darkest moments. Marcus Winters used to measure success in square footage and stock options. At 42, he had achieved what most considered the American dream: executive marketing director at Tech Vision Dynamics, one of Pittsburgh's most prestigious tech companies. His corner office on the 27th floor offered panoramic views of the city he'd conquered. The Wall Street Journal had once profiled him as one of the 40 under 40 marketing visionaries reshaping the industry. His LinkedIn profile read like a highlight reel of accomplishments. His home in Sewickley Heights, a 5,200 square foot modern architectural marvel, had been featured in Pittsburgh Home and Garden. His wife Vanessa, a successful dermatologist, completed their power couple image. Their dinner parties were coveted invitations among Pittsburgh's business elite. Their 2 children attended the city's most prestigious private school. Then came what Marcus would later call the collapse, a cascade of calamities that dismantled his carefully constructed life with terrifying efficiency. It began with an SEC investigation into Tech Vision's accounting practices. As the executive team scattered like cockroaches under kitchen lights, Marcus found himself the designated scapegoat, despite his innocence. The company needed a sacrificial lamb, and his recent push for transparency had made him unpopular with the board. The day security escorted him from the building, carrying his personal items in a cardboard box past colleagues who suddenly found their computer screens fascinating, was just the beginning. The investigation dragged on for 8 months. Legal fees devoured his savings. Former colleagues declined his calls. Recruiters who once pursued him now regretfully explained that he was too much of a risk while the investigation continued. Vanessa initially stood by him, but as their financial situation deteriorated and the whispers in their social circle grew louder, their marriage began to crumble. The night she finally admitted she'd been having an affair with her practice partner was the same night Marcus discovered his father had stage 4 pancreatic cancer. Within 14 months of the collapse, Marcus had lost his career, his reputation, his marriage, most of his assets in the divorce, and finally his father. The SEC eventually cleared him of wrongdoing, but the exoneration came too late. The damage was done. At 42, Marcus Winters, former executive, homeowner, husband, socialite, was living in a 1-bedroom apartment in East Liberty, with mounting debt and a resume that now triggered suspicion rather than admiration. After 6 months of rejections, unanswered applications, and interviews that went nowhere, Marcus's unemployment benefits were running out. His bank account resembled a digital countdown to homelessness. On a grey Tuesday in February, sitting in a coffee shop to save on heating costs at his apartment, Marcus stared at his laptop screen in disbelief. 6 different job applications, all for positions well below his qualifications, had been rejected that morning. The rejection emails varied in wording but conveyed the same message: overqualified, potentially flight risk, concerns about salary expectations. Marcus closed his laptop and gazed out the window at the Burger King across the street. He watched. A young man in a BK uniform unlocked the doors, preparing to open for the day. The young man couldn't have been more than 19, but he moved with purpose, with certainty. Purpose. Certainty. Two things Marcus hadn't felt in almost 2 years. Before, he could talk himself out of it. Marcus gathered his things, crossed the street and pushed open the door marked, "Now Hiring." The manager, a woman named Darlene Washington with kind eyes and no-nonsense posture, looked at his application with undisguised suspicion. "Mr. Winters, this doesn't make sense. You have an MBA from Carnegie Mellon and 15 years in executive positions. Why would you want to work at Burger King?" Marcus had practiced a response, something about pursuing new opportunities and transitional employment. But sitting across from Darlene's straightforward gaze, the practiced words dissolved. "Because I need a job," he said simply. "Because I've applied for 147 positions in the past 6 months and no one will hire me. Because I have 3 months of rent left in my account and my father's medical bills are still unpaid. Because I'm tired of being judged for a corporate scandal I had no part in. Because," his voice cracked slightly, "I need to work, Mrs. Washington. I need purpose again." Darlene studied him for a long moment. "Starting wage is $13,025 an hour. Training starts tomorrow at 7 a.m. We provide the uniform. No facial hair below the lip. No visible tattoos during shifts. Hair must be contained. Do you have non-slip shoes?" Marcus didn't. He would spend his last discretionary dollars that afternoon buying them at Walmart. Marcus arrived at 6:45 a.m., freshly shaven, hair neatly combed, wearing the khaki pants and non-slip shoes he'd purchased the day before. Darlene handed him his uniform, a red and blue polyester outfit that represented everything his life had become. A punchline. In the EO employee bathroom, Marcus changed clothes and then stared at himself in the grimy mirror. The uniform hung awkwardly on his frame. He looked like a middle-aged man in a teenager's costume. Swallowing his pride felt like forcing down a stone. "Just temporary," he whispered to his reflection. "This is just temporary." Training began with Jaden, a 19-year-old shift supervisor with a slight stutter and an encyclopedic knowledge of Burger King operations. The kid was kind but clearly uncomfortable, training someone old enough to be his father. "Mr. Winters, I'll be showing you the POS system today. It's pretty straightforward once you get the hang of it." Marcus nodded, attempting a smile. "Please, call me Marcus." By 11 a.m. the lunch rush hit. Marcus found himself stationed at Register 3 facing his first customer, a woman in her early 30s wearing a familiar power suit and the harried expression of someone with 15 minutes to acquire and consume lunch before her next meeting. "Welcome to Burger King. May I take your order?" Marcus recited, just as Jaden had instructed. The woman looked up from her phone, and a flash of recognition crossed her face. Her eyes widened slightly, then narrowed. Marcus? Marcus Winters? His stomach dropped. Lauren Fitzpatrick. She had been a junior marketing associate when he'd given a guest lecture at her firm 3 years ago. He'd taken her and several promising team members to dinner afterward, dispensing career advice and industry gossip over expense account cocktails. "Hello, Lauren," he managed. "Wow, you're working here?" Her incredulity was thinly veiled by a forced smile. "I heard about the Tech Vision situation. This is..." Behind him, Marcus could feel Darlene watching. Behind Lauren, customers were beginning to queue. "What can I get for you today?" Marcus asked, his voice wooden. Lauren ordered a Whopper meal, her eyes never quite meeting his as she paid, and then stepped aside to wait for her food. As the next customer stepped forward, Marcus could see Lauren already typing on her phone. By evening, his latest humiliation would be circulating through Pittsburgh's business community. That night, in his sparse apartment, Marcus sat on the edge of his bed and, for the first time since his father's funeral, allowed himself to cry. It didn't take long for word to spread. Pittsburgh's business community wasn't massive, and a former executive working the register at Burger King was too juicy a story not to share. By the end of his first week, Marcus had encountered 3 former colleagues, 2 former clients, and 1 member of his old country club. Each interaction followed a similar pattern: initial shock, uncomfortable small talk, and the unmistakable pity that Marcus was coming to despise more than outright mockery. The Worst encounter came on Friday afternoon. A group of 5 men in bespoke suits entered the restaurant, and Marcus recognized them immediately. The executive team from Pinnacle Solutions, a firm he'd pitched to and won a multi-million-dollar contract for Tech Vision 3 years earlier. Their ringleader, Chad Donnelly, had always been a particular type of corporate predator, the kind who measured his worth by the failures of others. Upon seeing Marcus behind the counter, Chad's face lit up with malicious delight. Well, if it isn't Marcus Winters, king of marketing, now serving at Burger King. His laughter was echoed by his colleagues. How the mighty have fallen, eh? Marcus felt his face burning. Jaden, working the second register, cast a concerned glance his way. Darlene, ever observant, was already moving toward the front. "And my entire department's coming for lunch next week," Chad continued. "I told them they wouldn't believe it until they saw it. We've got an office pool going on, whether you'll be assistant manager by Christmas." Before Marcus could respond, Darlene stepped between them. "Sir, you're holding up the line. Order or step aside." Chad smirked but placed his order. As he waited for his food, he took a surreptitious photo of Marcus with his phone. By Monday morning, that photo was circulating on LinkedIn with the caption, "Career Cautionary Tale from Corner Office to Paper Crown. How the Marketing Mighty Fall." The post went locally viral. Former colleagues expressed performative outrage while eagerly sharing the post. The comment section filled with a mix of false sympathy and thinly veiled schadenfreude. Marcus considered quitting. The humiliation was becoming unbearable. Yet something, pride or desperation, or perhaps the beginnings of a strange resolve, kept him showing up each morning at 6:45 a.m., donning the uniform that had become his hair shirt. 3 weeks into his Burger King employment, Marcus was working. The drive-through when a familiar voice crackled through his headset. Marcus Winters, is that you?" The voice belonged to Robert Chen, his former professor from Carnegie Mellon and a longtime mentor. Marcus had been avoiding Robert's calls for months, too ashamed to admit how far he had fallen. "Pull around to the second window, please," Marcus said, his professional tone wavering slightly. When Robert's Tesla appeared at the window, the older man's expression wasn't one of pity, but of genuine concern. "I've been trying to reach you," Robert said, accepting his order but making no move to drive away. "When I saw that disgraceful LinkedIn post, Marcus, why didn't you call me?" The line of cars behind Robert was growing. Marcus glanced nervously. "At the time of monitoring drive-through efficiency. I need to keep this line moving, Robert. I'll get written up if my window times are too long." Robert nodded, understanding. "I'll park and come inside when you're on break." "What time?" 2:30, Marcus said, surprised by both the offer and his own willingness to accept it. At precisely 2:30, Marcus sat across from his former mentor in a corner booth, still wearing his uniform, nursing a cup of coffee. "I didn't call because I was ashamed," Marcus admitted after Robert inquired again. "I've become a cautionary tale, the guy who had it all and lost it." Robert studied him thoughtfully. "Are you actually ashamed of working here? Or ashamed of what others think about you working here?" The question struck Marcus with unexpected force. He considered it carefully. "Both, I suppose. But mostly, I'm ashamed that I've let other people's perceptions define my worth. I spent 20 years climbing a ladder I didn't even want to be on, just because it impressed people I didn't even like." "And how are you finding the work itself?" Robert asked, gesturing to the restaurant around them. Marcus's answer surprised even himself. "It's honest work, harder than people think. There's a dignity in it I didn't expect. My co-workers are good people. Darlene, my manager, she runs this place with more integrity than half the executives I've known." Robert nodded, a slight smile forming. "The LinkedIn post is cruel, yes, but it's also revealing. Not about you, but about the culture you were part of. The same people who would have flattered you at a networking event are now mocking you for honest work. What does that tell you?" The question hung between them, an invitation to a perspective shift Marcus hadn't considered. Before he could respond, his break timer beeped. He needed to get back to his station. As he stood, Robert handed him a business card. "There's a small marketing consultancy looking for someone to mentor their junior staff. Part-time, flexible hours. They're former students of mine. Call them. Use me as a reference. But Marcus, yes? Don't quit here because you're ashamed. Quit only when you're ready to move forward, not backward. Something shifted in Marcus after his conversation with Robert. He didn't immediately call the number on the business card. Instead, he approached his work at Burger King with a new perspective. He began noticing things he'd overlooked before. How Jaden, despite his stutter, had a mathematical mind that calculated complex orders with stunning accuracy. How Tasha, the 19-year-old single mother working the grill, was taking online classes during her breaks. How Darlene knew every regular customer by name and often had their orders ready before they reached the counter. There was an ecosystem here, a community he'd been too self-absorbed to appreciate. One evening, after closing, Marcus found Jaden struggling with a marketing assignment for his community college course. Mr. Winters, Marcus, you used to work in marketing, right? Could you maybe look at this? I don't understand what they're asking about target demographics. Marcus spent 30 minutes breaking down basic marketing principles using Burger King's own strategies as examples. Jaden's face lit up with understanding. You're really good at explaining this stuff. Way better than my professor. The following week, Tasha overheard Marcus helping Jaden with another assignment. You know about business plans? She asked hesitantly during their shared break. I'm trying to start a small cleaning service, but this business plan template makes no sense. Soon Marcus was spending his breaks conducting informal business classes for interested co-workers. Darlene provided the break room and occasionally joined in, revealing her own aspirations to open a catering business someday. Word spread. More employees began bringing questions, assignments, business ideas. Marcus found himself looking forward to these impromptu sessions. For the first time in months, he felt useful, valued, not for his title or salary, but for his knowledge and willingness to share it. When Chad Donnelly returned to the restaurant with his promised delegation of office workers, their mockery fell flat. Marcus greeted them with a calm professionalism that seemed to disappoint Chad, who had clearly expected a more entertaining display of humiliation. The fallen marketing guru still flipping burgers, Chad needled, as Marcus handed him his change. Don't you miss the real world, Marcus? Marcus glanced past Chad to where Tasha was explaining her new cleaning service pricing structure to Jaden and Miguel during their break. I'm exactly where I need to be right now, Marcus replied, surprising himself with how genuinely he meant it. 3 months into his Burger King tenure, Marcus had settled into a routine. Mornings at the register or drive-thru, afternoons helping with inventory or scheduling, tasks Darlene had begun delegating to him, and informal business coaching during breaks. He had finally called Robert's contact and secured part-time consulting work that he handled during evenings and weekends. It wasn't his former salary, but combined with his Burger King wages, it was enough to start rebuilding his finances. On a busy Friday afternoon, corporate visitor badges appeared in the restaurant. 3 executives from Burger King's regional office conducting a routine inspection. Marcus thought nothing of it until Darlene called him into the office after the visitors had toured the facility. They were impressed with our operations, Darlene said, uncharacteristically nervous, particularly our crew training program. What training program? Marcus asked, confused. The one you've been running informally during breaks, Darlene explained. I've been documenting it. The business skills coaching, the financial literacy sessions, the customer service techniques you've been teaching. Our staff retention has improved 40% since you started. Our customer satisfaction scores are up, regional noticed. Before Marcus could process this information, Darlene slid a folder across the desk. They're launching a pilot program, BK Business Academy. Basic business and financial skills training for employees. They want us to develop and implement it across the region. They're offering me the project director position. Marcus felt genuinely happy for her. Darlene, that's fantastic. You deserve it. I turned it down, she said flatly. What? Why? Because I recommended you instead. She pushed the folder closer to him. This is your wheelhouse, Marcus. Creating training programs, developing curricula, implementation strategies. You'd be perfect for it, and it comes with a corporate salary and benefits. Marcus stared at the folder, stunned. Why would you do that? This could have been your big break, Darlene smiled. I don't want to leave restaurant management. I love what I do, but you're meant for more than taking orders, even if working here has been good for you. The regional VP recognized your name, by the way. She remembers you from a marketing conference 3 years ago. Said you gave the best presentation on consumer engagement she'd ever heard. Marcus opened the folder with trembling hands. The job description read like a perfect fusion of his past expertise and his recent experiences. The salary wasn't his former executive compensation, but it was substantial and honestly earned. They want an answer by Monday, Darlene said, standing to leave him with his thoughts. At the door, she paused. One more thing, they're insisting that whoever takes this position has recent frontline experience. They want someone who knows what it's really like to wear the uniform. After she left, Marcus sat in the small office, surrounded by scheduling sheets and inventory forms, contemplating how completely his definition of success had transformed in just 3 months. 6 months later, Marcus stood before 200 Burger King managers and assistant managers from across the northeastern region. Behind him, a PowerPoint slide displayed the logo for the BK Business Academy pilot program. The fast food industry employs over 4 million Americans, Marcus began, comfortable in his new role as Director of Employee Development. Many view these jobs as temporary stepping stones or dead ends. Our goal is to transform that perception, both from within and without. Every skill needed to run a successful business is present in your restaurants. Through this program, we'll help your employees recognize, develop, and leverage those skills. The presentation went well. Marcus outlined the 8-week curriculum he'd developed covering basic accounting, marketing, customer service psychology, conflict resolution, and entrepreneurship fundamentals. He shared preliminary results from the pilot: improved retention, higher employee satisfaction, and unexpectedly improved operational metrics as employees began understanding the business aspects of their daily tasks. After the presentation, as managers approached with questions and comments, Marcus spotted a familiar face hanging back at the edge of the group. Chad Donnelly, looking uncomfortable in business casual rather than his usual bespoke suit. When the crowd thinned, Chad approached hesitantly. "Marcus, congratulations on the new position." "Thank you, Chad. What brings you to a Burger King management conference?" Chad's discomfort visibly increased. I'm actually a franchisee now, or about to be. I bought 3 locations in the South Hills area." Seeing Marcus's surprise, Chad continued. "Pinnacle Solutions did a round of layoffs. I was among them. Turns out people don't forget when you publicly mock someone who's down on their luck. Your LinkedIn photo became a liability for me when I was the one needing work." He paused, clearly struggling with his next words. "I owe you an apology. What I did was cruel and unprofessional. And now, ironically, I need your help. My locations qualify for the Academy pilot program, and after what I've heard today, my staff could really benefit from it." Marcus studied, the man who had taken such pleasure in his humiliation just months earlier. "The program launches at your locations next month," Marcus said finally. "I'll be conducting the initial training personally." Relief washed over Chad's face. "Thank you. I appreciate it more than you know." As Chad turned to leave, Marcus added, "One more thing, Chad." "Yes?" "The paper crown jokes. They end now. Those uniforms represent honest work and good people. Respect that, or find another franchise to purchase." 1 year after his first day at Burger King, Marcus sat in his new office at the regional headquarters, reviewing expansion plans for the BK Business Academy, now rolling out nationally after its successful pilot. His phone buzzed with a text message from Jaden. "Passed my final marketing exam, starting internship next week. Thanks for everything, Marcus." Another buzz, a photo from Tasha showing the new logo on her cleaning service. Fun. Her business now employed 5 people and served over 40 regular clients. A third message notification, an email from Darlene with the subject line, "You won't believe who applied for assistant manager." The email contained Chad Donnelly's internal application, along with Darlene's note, "He's actually pretty good with the staff. People can change, I guess." Marcus leaned back in his chair, reflecting on the strange journey of the past 2 years. He had lost everything that once defined his success, and in that loss found a more authentic definition of purpose and accomplishment. His new role paid less than half his former executive salary. His apartment, while nicer than the East Liberty studio, was modest by his former standards. His social circle now included more fast food workers than corporate executives, yet he felt richer than he had in years. A knock at his door interrupted his thoughts. Robert Chen entered, carrying a small gift bag. "Happy work anniversary," his mentor said, placing the bag on Marcus's desk. "1 year since you started at Burger King. I thought it deserved commemoration." Inside the bag, Marcus found a framed screenshot of Chad's infamous LinkedIn post with the caption about the career cautionary tale and paper crown. But the frame's mat had been signed by dozens of people, Burger King employees whose lives had been touched by the Academy program, each adding a note of thanks. At the bottom of the mat, Darlene had written, "Sometimes humiliation is just the universe's way of humbling us enough to find our true purpose. Thank you for finding yours with us." Marcus felt a lump form in his throat as he placed the frame on his desk. "You know," Robert said thoughtfully, "I've been teaching business ethics for 30 years and I've never found a case study as perfect as yours to illustrate how success isn't linear and failure often isn't final." Marcus smiled. "I'm not sure my story is ethics curriculum material." "No? A successful executive loses everything, finds himself working in fast food, discovers unexpected value in work he once would have dismissed, and ends up creating a program that helps thousands of overlooked workers develop professional skills, all because he was willing to be humbled. Put that way, the narrative did have a certain poetic justice. The real irony," Marcus admitted, "is that I'm more proud of what I've built this past year than anything I accomplished in my previous career. Those marketing campaigns I won awards for, no one remembers them. But this program, it's changing lives." As Robert left, Marcus opened his laptop to finish the day's work. His email inbox showed a new message from Burger King's national office. "Academy expansion, CEO meeting request." The program he had built from the remnants of his humiliation was now catching attention at the highest corporate levels. There was talk of expanding it to other fast food chains, creating an industry-wide initiative for employee development. Marcus glanced at the framed LinkedIn post that had once represented his lowest moment. The cruel words had become a badge of honor, a reminder that sometimes our greatest humiliations lead us exactly where we need to be. 5 years later, Marcus stood before a crowd of over 500 at the National Restaurant Association's annual conference. The audience comprised executives, franchise owners, and industry leaders from across the food service sector. The Fast Track Academy has now graduated over 70,000 employees nationwide, Marcus announced, surveying the attentive faces. 83% report improved job satisfaction. 67% have received at least one promotion within their organization. 42% have pursued further education. The program that had begun in a single Burger King location had evolved into an industry-wide initiative. 7 major fast food chains had implemented Marcus's curriculum, each adapting it to their specific corporate culture while maintaining its core principles. After his presentation, as attendees networked over coffee, a distinguished-looking older gentleman approached. "Mr. Winters, Thomas Ellison, CEO of Global Hospitality Solutions." Marcus recognized the name immediately. GHS was one of the largest hospitality conglomerates in the world. Hotels, resorts, restaurants, and entertainment venues across 6 continents. "Your presentation was impressive," Ellison continued. "We've been following the Fast Track Academy's progress with great interest. I'd like to discuss bringing this concept to our portfolio companies, perhaps over dinner." The dinner led to a series of meetings, which led to an offer. Chief People Officer for Global Hospitality Solutions, overseeing employee development for over 300,000 workers worldwide. The salary was double what Marcus had earned at TechVision, with stock options and a global impact far beyond anything his former executive position had offered. It was the ultimate redemption arc, from disgraced executive to fast food worker, to C-suite of a Fortune 100 company. There was just one problem. Marcus turned it down. The day after rejecting GHS's offer, Marcus sat in his modest office at Fast Track Academy headquarters, now a separate non-profit entity serving the restaurant industry. Darlene, now his director of operations, stared at him in disbelief. You turned down global hospitality. That's the job people spend careers chasing. Her expression reflected the same shock Marcus had seen on Robert Chen's face when he'd shared his decision. It wasn't the right fit, Marcus said simply. Not the right fit, it was perfect. Global impact, executive compensation, corporate jet. It was everything you lost, but bigger. Marcus smiled. That's exactly why I turned it down. It was a return to who I was, not who I've become. He pulled out a folder containing his latest project, a partnership with community colleges nationwide to offer academic credit for fast-track academy courses. 5 years ago, I thought success meant corner offices and executive titles. Now I know it's about impact. Last week, I got a wedding invitation from Miguel. Remember him? He's regional manager for 3 states now. And Jaden's marketing firm just won a local business award. Tasha's cleaning company now employs 17 people. He tapped the folder. This partnership will make associate degrees accessible to thousands of workers who thought college was out of reach. That's worth more than a corporate jet. Darlene shook her head, but her expression had softened. You're a strange man, Marcus. Winters, 5 years ago you would have killed for that offer. 5 years ago I didn't understand the difference between success and significance. As Darlene left his office, Marcus's phone buzzed with a text message, a photo from an unfamiliar number. It showed a Burger King break room where a group of employees were gathered around a laptop, engaged in a fast-track academy session. The caption read, "Greetings from Singapore. Your program just launched at our location today." Marcus saved the photo, adding it to a digital album containing hundreds of similar images from around the world, visual reminders of lives touched by a program born from his greatest humiliation. Later that afternoon, Marcus took a detour on his drive home, pulling into the Burger King where his journey had begun. Most of the staff had changed over the years, but the restaurant held a special significance for him, a place of both profound humiliation and unexpected rebirth. As he waited in line, Marcus noticed a middle-aged man at the register, roughly his own age, wearing the familiar uniform with the awkward discomfort of someone clearly new to the role. The man's name tag identified him as Richard Training. The customer ahead of Marcus, a young professional woman in business attire, clearly recognized Richard from some former context. Her surprise and poorly concealed pity mirrored the reactions Marcus had endured years earlier. Richard Keller. From Westinghouse. You're working here? Richard's face flushed with the same shame Marcus remembered all too well. As the uncomfortable interaction concluded and the woman moved aside to wait for her order, Marcus stepped forward. Richard's eyes remained downcast, clearly expecting another humiliating encounter. "Welcome to Burger King, may I take your order?" Richard recited mechanically. "Actually," Marcus replied gently, "I'd like to tell you about a program called Fast Track Academy. It starts next week right here in this break room." Richard looked up, confusion replacing embarrassment. "My name is Marcus Winters," he continued, extending his hand across the counter. 5 years ago, I stood exactly where you're standing now, wearing that same uniform, feeling what you're probably feeling, and it turned out to be the most valuable career move I ever made." For the first time since Marcus had entered the restaurant, Richard's posture straightened and a glimmer of hope appeared in his eyes. "This job isn't the end of your story," Marcus assured him. "It might just be the unexpected beginning." As Marcus shared his journey with Richard, from humiliation to transformation to purpose, he realized that his greatest success wasn't the program he'd built or the lives it had changed. It was the moment he'd stopped measuring his worth by other people's metrics and discovered that sometimes the path to our most authentic self begins with a paper crown and a name tag.